When you think of death, what rises in you? Is it fear? Is it curiosity? Or is it something else entirely? On the 15th of February 1995, which is 30 years and 1 week ago, my dad died. I was 14, just shy of my 15th birthday. His name was Joe, and he died of an aggressive form of leukemia. From diagnosis to death, only a few short months passed. Due to a remarkable set of circumstances, I was alone with his body for the first 3 hours after his last breath. And something so profound happened to me in that time that it shaped the course of my life and my work forever. This talk is dedicated to both my parents, whose deaths have transformed and informed me. My mother, Lynn, died of Parkinson's last year. In the 30 years since my dad died, I have been called to the bedsides of the dying. I have laid out the dead. I've led thousands of funerals, and I've accompanied countless families and communities through their long process of grief. Death, to me, is the most profound teacher. One that has taught me how to live well, to be an activist for social justice. It has shown me that to grieve well brings immense joy. And despite the madness of the times that we're living in, I carry within me an unwavering hope. What I want to talk about today are some of the lessons from death as my teacher. But in particular, the ideas I feel most worth spreading are how to live through dying times. Because we are living through times of myriad endings. We're seeing the collapse of systems and institutions and societies. The collapse of our so-called Western civilization. The palliative stage of capitalism. But most pressingly, we are seeing the death of the ecosystems that sustain life on this planet. And I know that there will be doubters and deniers and those that shake their head and roll their eyes and say, oh, you're taking it too far. But if I know one thing about grief, it's that it comes with denial. Say it ain't so. So I won't waste my breath trying to convince those that don't have the ears to hear. I speak primarily to the youth because they already understand. It is they who will inherit the consequences of our unsustainable and extractive way of life. There'll also be people who think that I'm painting quite a bleak and hopeless picture. I just speak it like it is. I have supported people who knew they were dying, but their greatest pain came from the denial of the people around them. The dying value honesty. It helps them to prepare. And this is one of the greatest lessons that death gives us, that resistance to reality only deepens suffering. And another lesson is this, that when faced courageously and with support, death need not be bleak or hopeless. Our cultural fear of death is rooted in a belief system that values endless growth and productivity. In forgetting the cycles and the seasons of nature, we lose touch with the wisdom of elders and the leadership of those facing death well. To die with dignity, at home, in a hospice, and even in a hospital, is a privilege denied to too many on this planet. Too many people are dying in wars, in famines, fleeing persecution, in our streets, in our prisons, at the hands of police brutality, at their own hand, and in the rising tides of climate disaster. And it is only those who profited most from empire that continue to live in the relative comfort of denial. And this is why I say death asks us to stand tall for social and environmental justice. If I just go back a step, what happened the night my dad died, right? I went into the isolation room where my father's body lay. His last breath was still lingering in the air. I sat on the edge of the bed, and as I did, his chest rose and fell. And I ran out into the corridor and I said to a nurse, "He's still breathing." And she said, "No, kindly, he's definitely dead." And I needed to hear it that plainly. When I went back into the room, I touched his face and his body lightly. His skin was cool and waxy. I gazed at his face. It just seemed so different now the life force had left him. So peaceful. And then, out of nowhere, I started to sing. And at 14, I never had the confidence to sing. And here I was, singing the only lament that I knew. No need to argue by the Cranberries. And when I was finished, my tears were falling straight onto his forehead, and I wiped them away as if I were anointing him. I lay down next to his body. I took his hand, and I fell into a deep sleep. I dreamt of golden light and journeying with him to a point where I could go no further. And we exchanged waves of love and forgiveness. And he went on, and I came back. And when I awoke, rigor mortis had set in, but I just felt completely calm. And unlike some members of my family who none of my family got the privilege of those few hours, I mourned, but I was not traumatized. Because you see, giving my father his death rites was my solace. When death is shut away, taboo, in hushed rooms, the very fabric of our community frays and tears. Since the dawn of humanity, both birth and death have always been community events. The bones of our ancestors marked our belonging. And most of us, these days, do not live on the land where our ancestors were buried. And this displacement caused by colonialism, slavery, forced or economic migration, it weighs heavy. Successive generations of the dead have not had their proper death rites. Many of them remain unmourned. And their absence echoes in derelict mining towns and poisoned rivers and systemic violence. The unmourned dead haunt our public policy, manifesting in misogyny and the dangerous delusion of white supremacy. The unmourned dead howl like winds in a storm. Can you hear them? They ask us, "What will you do? What will you do?" And that is the question, isn't it? What can we do? And that question is one to put to death as the teacher. What can we do? And 5 simple principles are the response. Number 1, we can, and in fact we must, grieve as an act of love. You cannot grieve without loving, or love without grieving. They're 2 sides of one coin. So to grieve for something that you love is to honour it. So we must acknowledge the sadness of watching what is dying around us. And from that awareness, gratitude and presence can rise. Secondly, we must gather and reconnect. For tens of thousands of years, human beings have gathered to mourn and to celebrate. Thirdly, we must act collectively with wisdom. Come out of isolation. Nourish ourselves with the stories of elders and the dreams of children. We must centre awareness of what is dying in conversations in the family, in communities, and in workplaces, and allow that awareness again to sharpen our priorities. Fourthly, we can and we must acknowledge harms done by our way of life. Just as the dying review their life and seek forgiveness and to repair, then so must we together. Fifth, and perhaps most importantly, do not lose hope. We must actively cultivate hope. Because the very acts of giving death rites to what is dying are the same acts required to midwife a new way of being. Midwifery and hospice are also 2 sides of one coin. And those that prepare well for death, who seek forgiveness, who clear their conscience, they find that in their last breath, that breath itself is a gift of peace. Death, to me, is entropy. Whatever we believe we come from, surely we return to. And it is in that mystery that we must place our faith. And that is how I stand here today, speaking in hope. Because I dream, and I invite you to join me in dreaming, of a world in which the promise of life outweighs the promise of death for our young people. Ironically, it is death consciousness and grief literacy that offers the key to making the most of the time that we've got left on this planet. What if? What if making peace with death was, in fact, what brings us most to life? That would be an idea worth spreading.